And we're recording. So welcome back, everyone, to our Career Readiness Video Podcast. Join our super excited to kick off our second episode with Kristin from Black Veatch. So Kristin, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about your background, different things like that, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So my name is Kristin Brown, and I am currently the College Relations Manager here at Black Veatch. I have been with Black Veatch for about 3 years now. I started my career with them as an HR coordinator, and I supported both the HR business partner side and the recruiting side in our power division. And then I moved down to support our rotational program called EDGE and college recruiting efforts as a recruiter for about the last year and a half. And then recently moved into the managerial role where I oversee the entire college relations process from recruiting to interviewing to managing our recruiters and coordinators on the team to our strategy behind as well. I'm originally from Kansas City, and I went to college at Kansas State University.
So I know today we are touching base on job searching, the hidden job market, and informational interviewing. We're curious how you got your foot in the door at Black Veatch. And we know that your background, we checked you on LinkedIn, and you have a background in business fashion.
Yes.
And so we were curious, kind of how all that worked and how you got that job.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have an interesting career journey to now being in HR at an engineering firm, a long way from fashion merchandising. So that's what I got my undergrad in. And I thought I wanted to work in the retail space, and right out of college, got into that space and really realized like there were elements that I really enjoyed and that I really didn't enjoy. And started to shift my career path more towards HR because that's what I was really passionate about. So I had a really good friend that worked at Black Veatch in HR on the team that I started out with. And I was just looking for a change, but I didn't really know how to go about it or what to do in that space and how you would go about getting a new job. Because my first job out of college, I interned there. And so, it was kind of a natural first career. So I just texted him and I was like, hey, I know you're in HR. What do you like about it? Like, what do you like? What you don't like? Like, I think this is what I want to go into. And they just happened to have an opening. And so he got my foot in the door. I went ahead and applied and interviewed. And, I didn't have any related experience, I guess, to HR, definitely not engineering, construction, procurement. But I did have a lot of leadership experience, managing people experience, that, personal connection was really strong in that area as well as my communication skills. And so I was very transparent in that interview and said, this is going to be a huge learning curve for me, but I am up for the challenge. And I really do feel like this would be a good fit. And they just took a chance on me. And now, 3 years later, I've had 4 type of different roles in 4 years. And so has been quite a journey. But I really do love what I do every day.
So this can kind of transition. Makes my heart so happy because like this is set up perfectly for all the stuff we're going to talk about today. So I absolutely love that. But launching off of your experiences, of course, like you had that contact, those different things. What are some of those core tips that you might have on like job searching and navigating maybe that hidden job market and talking to people in that space?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest tip is to not be afraid to reach out to your personal networks. I was in this space of I don't know, is that weird to reach out to friends and family members and other things? And, people really do want to help you navigate this, especially this job market, now coming out of what we experienced last year. They really do want to help, and they know other opportunities or can really utilize their networks as well to see what else is out there. So that's always my biggest tip, is really don't be afraid to reach out to people already in your network. I'd say another big tip for that too is don't get discouraged. There are a lot of roles out there, And it can be confusing to figure out based off of job descriptions or job titles, like what might be right for you. And so don't be afraid to do a little bit of digging, apply for a variety of different roles. And also, remember that it does take time, and you might have a couple of months where you are job searching. It may not be the first one that you apply to, but just keep trying and trying again. You will eventually find something that is right for you. And, don't be afraid to just continue that journey if you're not finding the right things.
I love that. And you did mention, really important thing is to not be afraid to reach out to your network and the people that you know for opportunities. What if there's a person who doesn't really have a lot of people to connect with? What platforms or strategies would you encourage them to do to really navigate and network through the hidden job market?
Yeah, I definitely recommend LinkedIn for anyone. And I know that's the most popular kind of social media area for job searching. But it is a really great network, and there are a lot of things on LinkedIn to help you get connected with other networks as well. I don't think people really realize that you can join different groups based off of your interests or different companies you're interested in, or even different industries you're interested in. So for example, I was in a sorority at K-State, and so I joined my sorority's network. And so I have that network as well as, just my friends and other colleagues that I've met in my working environment to lean on if I do have, questions, or if people post in that forum all the time, like, hey, my company's hiring, things like that. So even like student organizations that you're a part of, national organizations, those are great places to start if you're not necessarily sure what network looks like. And also don't be afraid to friend a lot of people. I expand my network based off of, people who might be in similar roles than I am at different companies. And I don't know them personally, but I do try to connect with them, send them a message like, hey, it looks like you're also a college relations manager, like, let's connect. And I've met quite a few people around there as well. So, for students coming right out of college, connect with your peers. Because eventually they could potentially be colleagues in the future, but also don't be afraid to expand on any student organizations that you might be a part of now. There are national chapters still very wide and very present.
Thank you so much for that. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to dig a little bit deeper into is we're talking about really building your network and how to manage that. But you had mentioned earlier about like really looking through those different job descriptions and how it might be confusing and applying for those roles. How do students maybe establish a network to then leverage it to in that hidden job market of like, what if you can't necessarily apply for these roles, or how do you kind of use your connections to like go a little bit deeper and underneath some of those positions, if that makes sense? Or in a way, like, what does the hidden job market mean to you and kind of the role that you're in?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think there are a couple different ways you can really utilize your network and kind of do that job to digging to really make sure that that is the correct position you want to look for or use. I think definitely looking at the company overall and doing some really good research about the company before you even dive into job description is really key, because then you might be able to figure out, what that looks like in that description, or you might get a better sense of what the role looks like. I also know, we've had plenty of people who've reached out to our team or, the employee service center that we have at Black Veatch to even clarify a few things. So that could be a route too. If you're ever confused, they might have a general email that you go through to get in contact with someone. Yeah, I get calls and forwarded to me all the time like, hey, I applied for this job, I'd really love to connect, or I saw this job, like I'd love to learn more. And I always do try to get back to everyone. So that's definitely a route to go. Again, if you don't really have that network built up yet, is to do some research and see if you can't find at least a contact at that place to ask a few of those clarifying questions as you kind of go through your job hunt. that answer your question? I hope it did.
So I have another question. Have you seen within Black and Veatch in your role that candidates or individuals are getting more opportunities by just just applying through the online platform, or through building those connections and connecting with people and getting referred positions? What's the pattern that you see?
Yeah, that's a great question. Black and Veatch, we are a large company. We have over 12,000 professionals. We're a global company. And so I really do see a good mix of both. I will tell you from the college relations standpoint, just from keeping everything at a nice even playing field, we actually do prefer that you just apply directly through a job posting or like on bb.com/careers. And that is always going to be the first step, no matter who you get in contact with. Eventually a recruiter will get to you, and you will, get a notice back of like, hey, we're going to move you forward, or no, we're not going to move forward with your application. So I do suggest, I think from my own personal experience to always apply online first. And then if you have someone in your network, reach out to them and say, hey, I applied for this role. Here's my resume. If you could forward this to anyone, that would be really appreciative. Or, just for your awareness, I did. I get that a lot of times too. And even though they're kind of also referrals in that sense, it's always nice to see when the candidate said, I've already applied for this specific role, because that puts that person on my radar to go in and be like, oh yeah, they are in that role. Because at Black and Veatch, we have hundreds and hundreds of roles that are posted every day. And so it can be a little bit tricky to figure out where exactly you applied and things like that. So if you can be as specific as possible, and kind of do a dual there, that's always my suggestion.
Awesome. So, I mean, in that aspect, you mentioned a lot of different things. So what have you seen in your experiences of like some kind of mistakes that maybe students should probably avoid in navigating some of these waters of trying to get into a company, and basically how do they stand out and really try and make that the best possible advantage?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a couple of different things that, don't go over too well. Really do try to be patient. I know it's really tough. And I do the same thing. I apply for jobs and then I'm like, I expected an answer in a day. But understand that there are humans, especially on our side, sometimes there are automated systems and things like that, but at Black and Veatch, it is an actual person recruiter who are going through these resumes. So it might take them a week or two or even a month. In our busiest times, we're also going to career fairs just like students and doing that networking piece. And so I always ask the students and applicants to be patient. If you haven't heard in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or and you're curious, then like go ahead and reach out to those general emails or phone numbers that you can find as a follow-up, to put that back on our radar. So that's the biggest thing. Constant emailing and calling might get overwhelming for both you and the recruiter, and so might not go over the best, just depending on what that looks like. So that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest thing, is just to hold your patience. I see too, really making sure that you're applying to the roles that you really do want to apply to. It can be very tempting, especially in our space. We have hundreds, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of recs that we post. It'd be very tempting to hit apply to all of them. But really do make sure you take the time to figure out, what kind of industry you want to go into. At Black and Veatch, we have power and water and, environmental and all of these different business lines, we call them. So, if you are interested in power, apply for power. Don't feel like you need to put in applications for water and federal and environmental. If that's your passion and you see that's really where you want to go, put your applications there, put your efforts there. Don't feel like you need to cast the widest net. Sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes it's better to be really selective and specific to help with that. And then the third one is really tailor your resume. I know it's tedious and time consuming. I've been there, but really showcase what you want to showcase, and really don't be afraid to kind of, brag a little bit about the projects that you've worked on, or the internships you've had, or, student organizations that you're a part of. Those are all really good things to have on a resume. And of course, always keep your resume short, 1 page. That's always try to keep it that short and sweet.
Thank you for that. It got me thinking about, so say you have an applicant or candidate that decides to work for Power, right? They want to be in that area. Now, would you recommend that they just apply to one position or various positions that they're interested in that specific area? Because I know some students get confused and they're like, well, this one looks good in this one, but I don't know if it makes me seem like I'm all over the place or, missing opportunities. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's totally fine, especially because I am one that still doesn't know what they want to do every single day, always learning and growing in that space. And so I understand that students may not necessarily know what you want to do coming out of college. And so if you do have a few interests, like, don't be afraid to go and apply for a variety of different ones, in that specific space. But, if there are places that, especially like locations too, can help narrow that down, we always put our location. So if you're like, okay, I think I'd really like to be in Kansas City. So let me look at Kansas City openings first. Okay, I really see like the water description looks great and the power one. You know what? Let's go ahead and do both just to see. Or like, okay, I see there's like a few here in power. Like, okay, I'll go ahead and apply to those few. That can help narrow down that too, if you don't necessarily know exactly what you want to do. Maybe look at location and then look at, skill sets and things that you've taken, classes that you've taken over the past, 4 years. Are there any classes that really interest you? That could potentially help narrow that down too.
That's awesome. I one more question about that. So we always say that like a rejection is just a redirection. So say you do not get a position, it wasn't meant for you, so you move on to the next one. So if a person applies to a position at Black & Veatch, goes through the whole interview process and doesn't get the role, I know I can see a lot of students getting discouraged and saying, okay, maybe they don't like me at Black & Veatch, so I'll just go to a different company. So would you recommend that they just continue to apply for other roles in Black & Veatch?
Yeah, I think it depends on, again, what you really want to do. If you go through the whole interview process and unfortunately don't get an offer with us, you can always ask your recruiter, are there any other positions you feel would help my background? The recruiters are there to help you. And, we are really looking for the best and the brightest and those that are excited about Black & Veatch. And so I've had a few applicants who we didn't offer to ask me that question. And then I was able to be like, actually, yeah, I think you might be good for this one. And then I sent my notes over to, XYZ hiring manager to say, hey, we've actually already interviewed them. They weren't right for this role. I think they actually could be good for this role, and kind of connect that way. So utilize your recruiter if that happens, or even to get their feedback on like, is there anything I can do better? Sometimes, unfortunately, it comes down to like timing too. If you are a May grad and we're really looking for December, don't get discouraged on that. That might just be the timing of the business. And you can try again in the springtime, whatever that looks like. We've also had multiple candidates come back each year. So last year we had pretty limited positions. And so I had a really, really good, strong candidate pool for a lot of my openings. And so what I said to them is, keep in contact with me. Let's talk next year when we have more openings, and then we're able to get a few more in, as new roles started to open up this spring. So, in that regard, like, keep trying, especially if you really feel like that company, Black & Veatch, is where you want to be. I see it happen all the time where it might take, 1 or 2 kind of tries or years to really get in for an internship or full time.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I think feedback is so crucial when, especially if you unfortunately don't get the position, understanding, what could I've done better, experiences that should have had that would have made me, get that role. So I think feedback and that communication piece, talking to the recruiter and saying, hey, are there any other opportunities? I don't even think people would think about doing that, So that's some really, really great advice. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing I could think of is like, what a way to really leverage your new piece of your network. It's just like you met this person, and like that's someone else who, because when you mentioned like, oh, if I'm not fit for this role, like I can transfer my notes over to a new hiring manager. That's just so impactful. And it gives, I think, a new level of confidence to students that like it doesn't have to end right there.
Yeah.
I might, in a way, I'm going to backpedal, but also pivot.
Sure.
Just because I know one of the things we wanted to talk to you today about was kind of like informational interviewing. Do you have any kind of experience with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
So we've been moving to kind of calling them career conversations, just because it's a different way to have those. Sorry.
Fine.
If you want to take over for me.
Yeah, we are currently doing construction in our office, so it's
no.
Yeah, so kind of to piggyback off Chelsea, we like calling them career conversations just because informational interviewing can sound a little intimidating because it's not really like a formal interview, so kind of scares people. So just career conversations of getting to know individuals, maybe people who are in your role or your dream job. So have you had any of those? Have you done them yourself, or have you had people reach out to you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have done a few, and then I've also had people come in and do them with me. I think they're really beneficial, and especially again, if you're in this like last semester, this is totally how I was last semester of college, and I'm like, I have no idea like what I want to do. I think I want to go this route, maybe this route. This is a great way to help narrow down like, oh, I think I would really like to do that type of role. Definitely don't be afraid or intimidated or feel like it is formal, because it really should be more informal. At least I always try to make mine a little bit more informal. On the receiving end, I always like to give advice. Again, it's things of that nature, and try to just give really good advice and be very honest about the day in, day out of the jobs that I've been in, to really paint a clear picture for sure. On the other end of me going and doing informational interviews, make sure you have really good, thoughtful questions, not just like, what do you do for your job? If you can get specific, what does your job entail in terms of relationship building, or what does your day-to-day look like when you're actively recruiting candidates, or something of that nature, to help guide the conversation into like what you actually want to know about that job. I also always encourage to ask about company culture. I think that's really important. Black Veatch has an awesome company culture, and I like to brag about it a lot. And so sometimes I just like throw it in there. But I think it's important to figure out not only the job specific duties, but the overall company, and if you're going to like what that environment provides. Some people really like fast paced. I'm like, great, come to recruiting. It's so fast paced. We've got so much going on. Come to HR. If you like a slower pace, there are other roles that might be actually a better fit for what you want to have with that job style. So that's kind of my experience and advice around kind of those informal type of interviews, I guess.
And I love that, because I think, people's time are very valuable. So there are some things that you can learn about someone in advance, like looking at their LinkedIn account and their background and what they do in their role. And you're right, coming up with more thoughtful questions that can really get a conversation going instead of just stuff that you can find online. So yeah. I absolutely love that advice. That's great. Chelsea, do you have any other questions? I don't know if there's still construction going on there.
I think I have a lull.
Oh, good.
But I don't know that I have any more questions. This has been like incredibly inspiring and insightful, I know, for me, and I can't wait for our students to hear this. But do you have any questions for us, Kristin?
Not at this time. Just always a good shameless plug about Black Veatch. We are ramping up our hiring in the fall. UCM is an amazing school for us. We always hire lots of folks from UCM, and so we're excited to attend career fairs in the fall and stay connected with the school. And so just really excited to hit the ground running. And yeah, students, don't be afraid to come and apply for our open roles.
We're so lucky to have you guys. But
yes, we really are.
thank you so much for your time and offering yourself and your wisdom and all your advice to us and our students. I think this is kind of where we'll probably close out, but we'll probably stay on the call after we end our recording just to get a few things from you. But thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing everyone in the next episode.
Absolutely. Thank you all.